Well, now something's coming on too strong, and I just can't seem to get along. I always try to write a song, but sometimes the words ain't coming out right. Just my knees left tonight. As long as I've got a pipe, let's go.
All right, it's time for You Can't Brew That on Television. Tonight, we're going to explore beer cocktails as the summer gets into full swing here. We've got tips on sneaking beer into inappropriate vents. And Bano introduces us to the hops heaven that is Washington. Plus, as always, we've got craft beer and homebrewing news for you, so let's get started. Here they are, your Brewmeisters Kyle and the Reverend Bano.
Welcome to another exciting episode of You Can't Brew That on Television. I don't know about Kyle, but I am really, really excited to be doing this again. We are your hosts. I am the Reverend Ryan Bano.
And I am Kyle Sicko LaPointe.
And we are here as we're going to be the third Tuesday of every month to help you bridge the gap between beer snob and frat boy. Kyle, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, we're going to do a couple of segments. One that we're going to bring up from your hometown up there in Seattle these days. We'll let you introduce that one here in a little bit. But talking about basically the different varieties of beer in different areas of our country. We're also going to do a news segment like we've done in the past. We're going to try that one out again. Bano, what else do we have?
Guys, people in the Pacific Northwest love hops, and I mean they really love hops. Makes it tough to find a malty beer up here. So the few brewers that actually do make malty beers just really have to hit it out of the park. I mean, the few malty beers that I found up here are outstanding. So we're going to have a running segment called Sweetless in Seattle that we're introducing tonight, during which we're going to go around and we're going to try to find the sweet malty beers that Seattle has to offer, because they are here if you know where to look.
So we got a ton of stuff to talk about tonight, guys. I'm so excited to have you back on the network and doing shows with you again, mainly just so I can talk to you on a regular basis. But welcome back to the Lone Star, and hope you've all been doing well. You want to talk a little bit about what everybody's been up to, just kind of in the interim here? Since what was it? Last 2 years ago, we took a little hiatus.
we both had some exciting times over the last couple of years. I moved to Seattle since the last time you guys saw the show.
Pretty fresh. Well, not even fresh anymore, but a little Texas expat. Bano living up in the great Northwest now, kind of feeling out that section of the beer world. And I hear you've been doing your due diligence in that regard. So
I
thank
have,
you.
yeah.
Thank you for your commitment to the show.
Local brew scene, and it's fun. There's a lot of good beer to be found here.
And since you moved, we've had quite a few breweries open up in our neck of the woods.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Before the show, breweries are popping up all over the place in North Texas. So it's a fun time to be in North Texas. It's a fun time to drink beer because you can find good beer all over the place and of vast different varieties. In fact, so much so that it's actually dropped the homebrew community. Like the amount of revenue in the homebrew world and homebrew shops has decreased 10% each of the last 2 years.
Everyone's going pro?
Well, everybody has the ability to buy what they want, so they don't necessarily have to brew everything that they couldn't find before. I think that's
interesting. See, I always took this as a hobby that was is fun to do, from the chemistry, from the creative engineering, and just people have been able to cook for millennia, but that doesn't mean we don't go out to restaurants. So
right,
that's interesting, though. I guess, yeah.
Is that drop in revenue confined in North Texas, or is that a nationwide thing? Where were we reading that?
Worldwide. So,
wow.
Yeah. Trends pretty much the same across our country, local and across the country. So, it's pretty much, and I think a lot of that is just what Richard said. There was a huge boom of craft brewing for so many years where people are trying to get the information that they want, trying to brew the beers that they want, and they spent so much time trying to do all that because a lot of it wasn't available for them. Some of them did it for that sole reason, not because I liked to brew beer, but because I had to brew beer if I wanted to get a true English mild. So people stopped doing that once the local brewery across the street now makes an English mild. Just go out to that brewery, no big deal. So you don't lose everybody. You don't lose this huge chunk because other than that, craft breweries, home brewing in general was on the rise for about a decade, like large chunks. 5-10%.
A meteoric rise, I would say. I mean, the leaps and bounds made in homebrewing and during the time that you and I specifically have been involved has been incredible.
Technology and tools and supplies that were available to us when we started that we thought were just amazing are commonplace now. And you don't have to make anything if you don't want to. Everything's for sale. You can get into this, and you can get into this hobby by just spending money. You used to have to get into this hobby by spending time and money. And I think inevitably that ease of in and out causes more people to go away as well, because when you have to build and you have to take your own time to make your own resources, you tend to appreciate them more and you continue it.
Kyle,
And, along those lines, in our next episode, I want to discuss a business concept that I've discovered up here in the Northwest, right here in the town where I live, actually, Edmonds. There's a great little place that's making home brewing easier to get into for the average person. So let's discuss tonight's backed. So let's discuss that in our next episode.
this is true. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, guys. And I guess first we could just jump right into the news segment if you'd like to.
Well, if it's all right with you, Rich, I'd like to talk about what we're drinking first.
Oh, I would be remiss if we didn't. Please, what's everybody got in their mugs?
Well, we decided that for this week's episode, we would talk about summer cocktails and summer shandies. So Kyle and I have each prepared a mixed beer beverage that we're going to share and discuss. So Kyle, why don't you kick this off?
All right. The beer that, I guess the mixed beverage that I wanted to talk about was one that my mom brought to me, I'd say 15 years ago. It's now a popular beverage you can buy in a Budweiser can. But it's essentially what you have. It's called a chelada. And they brewed this, or they made these beers down in Mexico area. It's very popular. But they take a beer, and it's usually a Bud Light, and then they mix it and they fill it full of ice. So you've already watered down your beer. Then they put limes in it and salt. And they usually salt the rim of a glass, and you drink that. And it's a much more refreshing, lighter bodied, because it's got carbonation, but it's also ice. And so, yeah, doing a chelada is one of those it's not mixing a whole lot of other drinks in there, but it's basically, in my mind, it's like an iced tea and a beer together. And
it's a prepared drink. It's the Tom Collins of beer.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. It's not my cup of tea. I've tried it several times. It's very popular. You find it at all the gas stations here in our more quaint Mexican areas of town. So, it's still a very popular beverage once they put it into cans. But, most white folks don't
now, is the chelada different from the clamato? What is the tomatoized version?
What's that?
That is like, I believe, I haven't had that one, but I believe that's like a tomato juice and beer. So it's almost like a Bloody Mary beer.
Oh,
okay. I've always thought those two were the same thing. They sound very different.
No, they're totally different. Yeah.
Okay.
The clamato one, it's like V8. It's not just a pure vegetable puree, but it's also got some. It's not just a pure tomato puree. It's vegetables and tomatoes. But yeah,
all right.
I wouldn't want to have anything to do with that in the summer.
No, certainly not.
Maybe for an early morning flight.
I decided to go a slightly different direction for my summer cocktail. I've got an interurban IPA from the Fremont Brewery in the Fremont neighborhood of North Seattle. Interurban IPA is a I'm not sure I would call it an IPA. I would call it an APA. It's got a pronounced bitterness, but it's not overly done, and it's got a lot of citrusy hops in it. Just a big citrus smell. Just the moment I uncapped this bottle, I smelled this big citrus coming out of it. And I'm going to make a Boilermaker out of this using limoncello to bring out that citrus even more. This is not something that I've tried. I'm literally trying this for the first time.
You mix a lot of drinks in your bedroom there?
Not typically, no. And this is definitely the first time.
Probably not the last.
Yeah. So bottoms up. This I've had this beer before. It's absolutely tremendous. The malt bill is just complex enough to balance out the pronounced bitterness. And I mean, you could smell the citrus coming out of this before the limoncello, and now it's just absolutely exploding.
That sounds all right.
That's really good. That is really good.
Well, cheers. This is not so good.
Enjoy that, you bastard. Thanks so much for nothing.
I'll send you some of this. All right, so
Well, excellent. That's a good way to kick off the summer season, I guess.
yeah, I think so.
For sure. And we'll talk more about that kind of as we get later down into the show, I suppose. News? Too soon?
No, let's do news.
News! Yay! Okay.
Everyone, we're still trying to get back into the swing of this, so forgive me if I'm doing procedural stuff on the fly. Rich, do you want to read the headlines and then we can discuss what we brought?
Absolutely. So, Kyle, unfortunately, I hear you're feeling a little under the weather today.
Yeah, not feeling so hot. You're not supposed to get a cold in the summer, but I got one.
Well, yeah, I know. That's kind of been going around my house, too, so I guess stay away from the fermenters. But
I was informed that if you put soap underneath your eyelids, that it will make you feel better. So
well, it'll make you forget about the nausea.
Yeah.
Did you read that on an internet meme? Because those things are always right.
Yeah, the internet's always true. So
yeah, if you saw it on a picture on Facebook, it's right, man. It's inarguable.
My situation is slightly different because I can either hug or punch the person tomorrow that informed me of this methodology.
Yeah, there you go.
So far, so good. My eyes are not completely burning, and it's actually, I guess, the...
oh, wait, you're serious? This wasn't like some kind of scam or bit? That's
No, this was told to me today, and I was feeling bad enough to where I gave it a shot. So it's not actually soap. It's the, what do you call that stuff where you, like, just hand sanitizer? Clear
straight
hand
alcohol?
sanitizer?
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so...
I was told, actually, that putting soap into your mouth would clear up your propensity for profanity. So... I'm looking into that.
I was raised by that same philosophy, actually.
Eat the soap, Rook.
Bar soap, not so good with liquid.
Yeah, it never worked with liquid.
Just chugging it. It's a good thing they didn't order catsup.
Yeah. So, Rich, what do you recommend?
So the segue that I was falling over my feet to get to was you suggested this one, Time Magazine's story about. I said click. Okay. About the cure for the common cold, a beer, according to Sapporo, out of Japan. You want to tell them a little bit about this, or did you just read the headline, Bano?
No, I've read it, and we've actually discussed this exact article on the show before. I don't know if it was necessarily the Time version, but we've discussed this study on the show before. It's been a few years. Essentially, what it boils down to is that one of the chemicals that's in hops is well known for fighting the common cold. But this study was put out by Sapporo, who informs you that in order to get the proper amount of this chemical that's in hops, you need to drink approximately 30 cans of Sapporo.
Okay, so sushi night.
Kyle, either get drinking, you have about 29 more beers to go, or find an interurban IPA, because I'm pretty sure there's enough hops in here to do it in one shot.
Well, the active ingredient that is supposedly the difference maker here is humulone. Which
humulone and cohumulone are two of the major factors in hops. So some of the hops have more of that than others. So that actually the type of hop that you're using would drastically increase that. So the ones that taste more like weed and smell more like weed, some of these new hops varieties that they have, there's a brewery called Cedar Creek down southeast of Dallas that makes a beer called Dankosaurus, and it's an IPA that is 100% hopped with one of the new, it's a numbered hop. I don't even remember the number, but it tastes and smells just like weed. So having the Dankosaurus.
I'm pretty sure.
I wonder if that'll be a successful market.
That might be what Stone used, and this year's Enjoy By was Enjoy By 420, or I guess the one in the spring was Enjoy By 420, and it literally felt like I was drinking weed.
Yeah, and so the humulone and cohumulone in those is going to be massively increased. I'm pretty sure. Based on some Brewers Roundtable discussion here, last year's Blue Bonnet, learned quite a bit about that.
Well, still, I've got to say that
I smell a lot of that hop these days.
This article, though, it still kind of smacks of one of those pharmaceutical studies that's wildly biased. Like the beef industry says eating a bunch of cow will reduce your problems with the heart and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sapporo says drinking a lot of beer will save your life.
But it has to be Sapporo, or it's not going to work.
Yeah, it must be, obviously, because we've got the right kind of hops here. Does anybody... I would eat hops. Is eating hops, do you think that would be an acceptable way to do this as well? Just the raw flowers? Just go out and graze in Seattle there?
Give it a shot and let us know how it goes.
Sounds delicious.
All right, what else have we got, Rich?
Okay, you guys ready to hit the next news article here? Let's see. Another one in the queue. Mighty Squirrel Beer. This is in Boston. They're offering the first protein-packed beer, reinventing the concept formerly discussed here on the show about beer as a post-workout recovery drink.
Yeah, and again, this is also something we've discussed on the show previously, is the concept of beer as a workout recovery drink. This is actually getting more and more press here. I've seen several stories about this. Not this particular beer, but this concept here in the last few weeks. The concept of beer as a post-workout recovery drink. This particular beer, I wouldn't call it protein-packed. It's got 5 grams of protein per serving, though.
Bam! So again, if you drink 30 of them after your workout, you'll be in great shape.
Well, that's one serving, 30 beers.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's 130 beer serving.
Well, that makes sense. Well, I'm actually, I don't know if you guys know, my workout of choice is mountain biking here in North Texas when they're not flooded. We've got a lot of great trails to do that sort of thing on. And the bike rack I've actually got for my car, it's got bottle openers built into it. I guess because this is a common thing. This is like, well, you go work out a whole bunch and then you pop a beer and that kind of replenishes you. And I'm like, man, that beats the hell out of Gatorade, right? Oh. So again, looking out for your health here on the show. This technically qualifies as a health news segment now. So look for us on the morning news.
It's in a row. So here's my question on the Sapporo. I'm going to back up.
Please do.
The 30 beers of Sapporo to make me feel better for my cold. Is that a preventative or is that a superlative? Do I need to take that?
Yes.
I believe that's a cure.
I have the cold, or is this something I need to do every day up until I have a cold?
I don't think it's a wellness thing. I think it's a cure.
Yeah, I think you're going to want to do the regimen every day and then double down if you actually get an ailment. So it's work.
I drank about 30 beers a day in college, and I do not remember having a cold.
I don't remember anything, but definitely not sickness. So.
All right, what else we got, Rich?
Let's see. Up next, we have how about the story about Danish farmers and their ecological breakthrough.
Those crazy Danes.
Danes.
The Danish are somewhat world-renowned for their efforts in sustainability. They really like to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And this is recycling of kind of a dirtier, grosser nature. At beer festivals, they are collecting festival goers' pee. And
seems like that might be in tight demand. I don't know where you're going to find pee at a beer festival, but.
Yeah, we're going to find pee at a beer festival. And then they are handing it off to local farmers who are using it to grow new barley for next year's beer. So the Danes literally recycling beer into new beer.
Right, and so this isn't a story necessarily about wastewater treatment and like astronaut pee recycling. This is more using the urine as a way to produce crops that can later go into beer. So hopefully Mother Nature does its work there and takes all of the business out of her business. If that makes sense. But so it's not totally nasty. It's not like here, have a glass of piss beer, but it does beg the joke. Who wants to do it?
I've always noticed though that the Danish.
No. You got to give the punchline. You got to give the punchline.
They've, they're kind of crusty on the outside, but really in the center, they're sweet. Sweet.
All right, Bano, you want to try?
I assume it's a Corona or a Budweiser.
Yes. Budweiser's perfected that method. They've been doing it for years. So I'll put in the dream shot there. Speaking of Budweiser, this is one I kind of came across on, I guess it's the internet. I don't know if any of you guys are Twitter users. Write
that down, Kyle. We need to look
Twitter.
Into this.
It's Twitter. It's on the internet. I'll send you a postcard with how you can get to that. But anyway, this is something that Budweiser's been doing in their Twitter campaign, and Kyle and I have kind of discussed a little bit some of the conspiracy theories behind it. But basically, trashing the craft beer community as a means to promote their own brand. Which
yeah, Kyle and I both have some interesting theories on what they're attempting to do here.
tell me
Kyle,
what you guys
why don't
have
you
going
go
through your head on
first?
this one. This is interesting to me. This is interesting business news.
All right, so Bano and I's ideas are both solidly sound as far as conspiracies go, in my opinion, but they definitely go in two different paths. So my direction that I'm going with this is that Budweiser, they know people know they're snatching up craft breweries. They're snatching up craft breweries left and right. They're trying to buy all these craft breweries to get inside the market that's selling beers at a higher per capita rate. They can still produce those beers at a much lower dollar rate. So they want the labels so they can produce a higher margin. I think that this whole bad mouthing craft beer thing is more at an admonishing the small guy and saying the small guy doesn't know how to do it, not to admonish craft brewing as a whole or the craft beer itself, but to say that specialty ingredient beers done by these chumps are not very good beers. 2 years later, we're going to see, but oh, wait, us who are great at brewing beer because we've been doing it so big, so strong, so long, make the
They're
same
doing it wrong, is what you're claiming. Well, that would have to be a huge flip flop of epic proportions, because the one that caught my attention was nobody cheers for the guy who brings a watermelon wheat beer. And of course, there were tons of responses that were hilarious. If someone brought Bud to my party, I would disown them immediately. Nobody cheers a multinational conglomerate strong arming the little guy and still trying to pass for an American business. Just the fallout was kind of epic. But yeah, I could see that they're basically setting up like craft beer is stupid because we're not doing it, and so it kind of sets them up for coming around like, no, you fools, this is how you do a watermelon wheat beer.
Exactly. And they're grabbing market share. I mean, they are going in there and they are causing a ruckus, which creates not only internet buzz from the homebrewers of the world, who on earth, how can they reach the homebrewers of the world? I mean, they can't. How can they reach the craft brewers of the world? Bud can't. They just don't advertise to those people. Now they are.
Well, Miller is kind of trying that with their pseudo craft beers, like their third shift amber or whatever it is. They're trying to make it like we do craft beer too.
Michelob has been doing this for quite some time. I remember when I was in college, I drank Amberbach by the gallon.
Yeah.
I mean, Amberbach is definitely like a pseudo small batch beer.
It is.
And I believe it's the exact same recipe as Ziegenbach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think
Amberbach in Texas is Ziegenbach.
Shocking.
I had both of those beers, and I would say there's very little difference between them.
Oh, there really isn't much of a difference. The cheese guy swore by Ziegenbach. When I lived in Texas and he lived in Oklahoma, he always made me bring him a case of Ziegen every time I came to visit, despite the fact that he could buy Amberbach at any liquor or grocery store up there. But I guess if you're really, really, really into one beer or the other, there's a difference.
The
but
label
for the rest,
matches my shirt.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of one of Kyle's points kind of leads into my conspiracy theory about all of this.
Yes.
There is a segment of the population that, as Kyle said, Budweiser is never getting back, and that is the craft beer drinker. If you're Coca-Cola and you lost market share to Pepsi, you can launch an ad campaign or change your look or do something to get those people back, because those are basically the same product. But if you're Budweiser and you're losing drinkers to the craft brewing movement, you're never going to get those people back.
It's like losing a Pepsi drinker to wine.
Exactly. If the Pepsi drinker suddenly decides that he would rather have wine or Mountain Dew or whatever, you're not getting that guy back because he's gone. And so Budweiser recognizes this, and what they see is a segment of the population that is over here now drinking craft brew, and a segment of the population that is over here drinking their beer and other domestic blonde lagers, right? So what I think Budweiser is trying to do is unite those American lager drinkers under one flag. They're trying to create an us against them mentality. Think about some of the most successful companies that are around right now, and a lot of them create a cult-like atmosphere for their consumers. So Apple, for instance, when was the last time you saw people line up down the street on at 5 a.m. on a Monday morning for Windows 8. You know, like people don't do that. They do that for Apple because Apple has created a cult. It's almost like mind control. And so I think that this is what Budweiser is trying to do is they're trying to grab, if you drink Miller, if you drink Michelob, if you drink whatever other garbage beers are out there, you need to come to us because we're holding the standard for your beer. We are fighting the fight. And I think that that's what Budweiser's doing here, and I think it's a genius move.
Well, not to encourage the enemy here, but I think if it were me launching a marketing campaign and trying to recapture this segment or just return consumer confidence about your brand, I think what I would say if I were a Budweiser, if I were a Miller Brewing, I would say something along the lines of, you remember when beers were simple. Remember,
exactly.
try to like make it seem like the craft brewing isn't bad or gross, but just make it, play up the pretentiousness. Some, like kind of maybe offset the beer snobs from the real Americans, And I think there's some.
Make it sound like a Bluebell commercial.
Exactly, like playing a little Americana, like come back and drink your dad's GM or whatever, and
just like evoking images of a rocking chair on the front porch, like.
The beer the way Americans have drank it for damn near 100 years.
We should have 1 decade of a hiccup.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should
so much.
We should write advertising for these companies.
I'm just saying,
they're terrible products, but we would be great at advertising them.
Well, I'm really working for that Budweiser ad contract on the show for us, so we'll see how that plays out.
If you're watching and you want to sponsor a local craft brew television show, be sure to call us.
Absolutely.
I think we would be able to put together a much swankier ad campaign for a lot less dollars than what they're paying right now. I bet they pay millions of dollars.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that's world-class marketing happening right there, and we could probably do a better job out of our home studio.
We'll do it
for $1 million.
Just $1 million.
Yeah, there you go. We'll give you a cut rate deal. Yeah. Just because we know you guys and we respect the way beer used to be. Simple and tasteless. All right, so I'll finish out. I got one more news segment, and then I'll toss it back to Bano. But so I read something or actually I saw it online. Our local Channel 8 was covering a new class at our local community college in Dallas Eastfield in Mesquite, Texas. They're introducing a journeyman brewing course that you can take in order to get your official craft beer brewer's credentials, I suppose. Because the story reads there's so much of a booming craft beer industry here in North Texas that there's a drought. There's a draft of. Wait, no, it is a drought. I'm sorry.
It is a drought.
It's a drought. Yeah, I read that and I was like, wait, am I saying this wrong? Because it's a beer story. Yeah, it's a drought of talent. They can't, new breweries coming online. They can't find brewmeisters and people to flesh out their staffs. What do you guys think about the potential for growth in this industry kind of reaching the apex, kind of like we talked about earlier? Maybe the homebrewing bubble, maybe we've kind of reached our limitations on the craft beer bubble because we have had about 20 breweries come online in the last couple of years. Is that not right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just vacuuming the market.
I believe we're over 30 in the North Dallas area now, and there are many, many on the market. There are 2 breweries in Garland, Texas. Garland, not exactly.
It's not quite Starbucks bad, but it's getting there.
Exactly. Not a Seattle, not a Colorado Springs, nothing like that. I mean, this place, Garland is like kind of rough northeast Dallas area. I mean, it's very industrial, very businesslike, but it's got 2 full-scale breweries up there now. And I have heard about some of this. Several of our breweries around here actually helped instigate this program for just that need, like you're talking about. They were running out of brewers across the way, and they start talking amongst each other because that's the weird thing about craft breweries. They hope they all succeed.
Sure.
They want somebody else to make a better beer so that they can then have to make a better beer to beat that guy's better beer. But ultimately, they all want everybody to have a market share and do well. And our friends over at Rabbit Hole, Matt Morris, is very keen on this idea. He's a big player in setting up this curriculum.
That's interesting. Again, we keep coming back to this theory of co-opetition, but it's something I kind of was talking to one of our guests on a show on our Showtech show that we do on Sunday nights here. We were talking to the founder of the Grapevine Escape, It's a new escape room project that just got kickstarted. So they're opening
I
this
heard
thing.
that they're actually filming that or trying to set that up at Ryan Faulkner's old apartment, which had so many intricate series of locks to get out.
Yes,
that it was just a logical place.
it was
to
part
have.
of his dating regimen. Yeah. No, but it was kind of the idea was, there's not really any room for independence in this field, in these fields, and I kind of liken it to podcasting and video streaming. There's no shortage of beer shows out there or podcasters. So the game isn't necessarily, trying to be the only one out there. It's just trying to be the best and having your own unique take on things. And in the meantime, anybody else who enters successfully into the market is just advertising the market exists to people who don't know about it and kind of helping everybody grow. So there's room for that competition. And it's almost like you're in a weird cooperative state where you're not, colluding and setting your prices together or sharing your trade secrets, but you're certainly not encouraging the competition to curl up and die. So,
Well, craft brewery as a whole, craft brewery, like every one of them, is what, 5 to 10% of the market share?
right.
It's grown massively to get above 5%. So that's where they lie right now. They're still a single-digit percentage versus more than 50% being Anheuser-Busch and another giant chunk of that percentage being Miller Coors. So you're talking about two companies versus 1,800 breweries in America.
And that's interesting, though, that even because of numbers like that, kind of going back to the Twitter story, that companies like, Budweiser or InBev are apparently threatened by this movement. Like the growth has been so astronomical of late that maybe they're doing the climate change trajectory and saying, oh, by this time next year, they're going to have 3,000%, it just seems strange that, they're not really making a dent in the global beer consumption market. There's still a lot of growing to do, but we still see these big companies kind of bowing up. It's interesting.
Well, you're talking about companies that over the last, especially 30 to 40 years, have waged ad campaigns solely against each other. I mean, the Coors versus Miller versus Budweiser campaigns that have gone on in the last half of a century. They've been
you don't see that anymore. They used to fight each other pretty bitterly,
and now it's companies though. So, right? I mean, it used to be Miller, Coors, and Bud fighting for that number one spot. Now Miller and Coors are together. Bud is the king. So they don't fight so much anymore.
And Bano, you would kind of expect that to be a bitter fight, considering they're triple hopped.
Yeah, they are triple hopped.
There's going to be a lot of bitterness associated with that naturally. So.
Miller.
And then Michelob is always there, like somebody's kid brother who desperately wants to play, but like constantly gets his ass whooped.
Right.
Oh, Michelob. So precious.
Sorry.
All right, let's do a fun one. We got one more news line, and then we can kind of jump into the show proper here. But Bano, you a couple weeks ago, you got to go to Seattle Beer Fest. You got some footage. You went out and filmed of the festivals, and tell us a little bit about your times out there.
Yeah, absolutely. What was that, Kyle?
Where is this at?
The Seattle International Beer Festival.
Oh,
it's in Seattle.
It's in the international terminal of Seattle-Tacoma.
Okay.
It's in the international portion. There are a lot of beer festivals up here on the Pacific Northwest. I'd say there's one during the summer. There's probably 2 a month, and during the fall, winter, and spring, you're still seeing a beer festival every couple of months. So
awesome.
I've been to probably 10 or 11 beer festivals just in the year and a half that I've been here. And of the beer festivals that I've been to, the Seattle International Beer Fest, as far as overall fun and ability to taste a wide range of beers, is by far the best. Seattle International Beer Festival attracts brewers internationally. You get breweries here from all over Europe. There were 2 breweries from Japan, I believe, just sending in some of their best stuff, and you're going to get some casks of weird one-time releases. It's a really nice atmosphere. It's summer in Seattle, so it's like 75 degrees. You're outside. There's a band. The bands they get are always really good. And just an absolutely fantastic time. I was fortunate enough to be able to go 2 consecutive days this year. Got to try probably 25 different beers, and all for, I think, a grand total of $45. to get in,
Oh,
try out
nice.
these beers, and come home with a tasting glass as well. Now, I did take some tickets from a friend of mine who was done for the day, but still
Those are the best.
really great value, and just a fantastic time. So anybody in the Seattle area next summer, if you're looking to plan a trip up here, this is something I would actually plan a trip around. It's fantastic.
Very nice. And what did you say the temperature was ranging up there during these festivals?
During this festival, it was like in the mid 70s. It was sunny and gorgeous. This particular festival is in the shadow of the Space Needle.
Well, it's all of 9 o'clock here Central Time in North Texas, and it's about that in this room. It's about low 80s.
It got up to like 79 here today.
Oh, must be nice. Anyway, we'll have to do a remote shot from Seattle soon because I'm overheating in the studio.
You guys are always welcome. I'm actually broadcasting from the guest room, so this is where you guys will be staying.
How convenient! The remote studio is the guest room. I see what you're setting up there. That's very good.
You see what I did there?
I like how the door behind you is the door outside, but you always walk to the door beside you, which I'm pretty sure is the closet.
Yeah, he just hangs out in there like Nosferatu.
So, what's the problem with that?
Well, you don't sleep standing up?
Like it's a bad thing.
5 minutes, I'll be right back out, sir.
Where do you poop? All right. On that note, up next we're going to talk about our first topic of the night, and it is sneaking beer. Some tips and tricks for getting beer into inappropriate venues and beer situations that should not be. But first, we should talk about kind of our pseudo-sponsor of our first show here. And Bano, I want you to kind of talk them up a little bit. They're a local gem in the Seattle area. This is Salish Brewing Company. It's not Seattle, though.
It's technically in Edmonds. Yeah, tonight's episode is brought to you by the Salish Sea Brewing Company in Edmonds, Washington. Salish Sea produces a pretty decent variety of beers, especially for the Northwest. They have some nice light malty stuff, some Englishy stuff, and of course your typical Seattle selection of just really heavy hops. They've got some nice porters though, and a decent blonde ale. They're located in downtown Edmonds, which is a historic walkable community. So on a nice Saturday afternoon, you're down here checking out the shops. Maybe on a Sunday, you're down here checking out the classic car show. You're never more than a few blocks away from the Salish Sea Brewing Company. So next time you're in Edmonds, which is about 10 miles north of downtown Seattle, make sure to stop in and check out Salish Sea. It is an Edmonds kind of beer.
Very nice, and we're glad to be working with those folks. It sounds like you've got some good stuff to report. Later on in the show, we'll be revisiting Salish. That's a little
absolutely,
tease.
and I've got to tell you, this is of the potential sponsors I've talked to about this show. Salish is by far the most excited. They are just like chomping at the bit to film commercials and let us do remotes there. They're really, really excited about this. So,
well, that happens to be our specialty, Salish. So it's good to know you for sure.
Yeah. The great brewery, great folks that run it. It's just I can't say enough about it.
Fantastic. And now is that on the opposite side of the sea from where the U.S. Open was this year?
It's up the coast a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember that, and I was looking at a lot of the geography of the area, trying to figure out exactly where that golf course was. And we have some relatives up there, and we got you up there, and I'm like, okay, there's Edmonds, and I just can't remember exactly where everything was at this point.
Tacoma is at the southern end of the Puget Sound. Puget Sound is part of the Salish Sea. The Salish Sea encompasses the Puget Sound, the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and I think a few various bays and harbors and things like this. And Puget Sound basically runs north and south like a gigantic lake. Tacoma is at the southern tip of the Puget Sound, and we're on the east side, about halfway up, give or take.
Cool stuff.
Yep.
Absolutely. So if you guys are ready, that said, let's talk on. I want you to share with me and with our audience here the craziest event or endeavor you've ever made to sneak a beer. Who wants to go first?
Kyle, let's hit it.
All right. Craziest place I've ever snuck a beer.
Or the most outlandish effort you've ever made.
I thought this was going to be a tips and tricks segment. I've got one.
That's true. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you've pulled off.
Got one. I'm thinking of a few places. I mean, my pants have smuggled a beer or two over their years, but I'm trying to think of the craziest place of which my pants have smuggled beers.
What you smuggling there? Beer?
Beer.
Just happy to see you.
Cock beer?
Let's see. So, and that's so typically like people will sneak a little sniff of alcohol in. You know, it's easy to throw a flask in your pocket, that sort of thing. Not so much with beer. You got to be a little bit more creative because of the carbonation or the nitrogenation, depending on your skill level.
I'll go ahead and jump out in front. We'll give Kyle a minute or two to think about which of his many beer sneaking escapades he wants to discuss. A few years ago, a good friend of the show, the Faz, and I decided that we were going to go down to the West End the night before OU Texas because we were going to go down there and we're going to yell at Texas fans. And we don't feel like standing in OU Texas lines or paying OU Texas prices for OU Texas beer, which is not terribly good. So a couple months before we went down there, I brewed a rather large batch of stout, and we bottled this stout into Coke bottles. So Faz and I walked around the West End with Coke bottles full of stout, which just looks like Coke. So this is how we snuck beer into the West End.
Good redirect there. Good thinking.
That's how we roll. Believe it or not, Faz's tiny little architect brain came up with that idea.
What about complications? I mean, can you get yourself into trouble like this trying to transport a liquid that's not going to behave like your average Mr. Pibb? Or
I suppose if anybody tastes it, yeah, but you're just walking around the West End with an open container of Coke.
Yeah.
It's very similar, except I would think that would be more difficult because one of the common things people do sporting events is they'll take like a 7-Up bottle or something and fill it with vodka. And then they'll mix that with another drink. So
exactly. So everybody's on the lookout for that. Nobody's on the lookout for a Coke.
And so when you smell that bottle, it doesn't smell like alcohol. You go, oh, I smell, just like, oh, is that root beer or something instead of Coke? I don't get it, but
yeah, that's weird
to catch it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really think about that, but you kind of, with the alcohol sneaking, especially if you're doing a different container like that, you are setting yourself up for failure. If somebody does come along and do the sniff inspection, that stuff's usually pretty hard to mask. Beer, not so much. I mean, you'll catch a scent, but it doesn't have that, obviously alcoholic character to it. So
no, and especially
depending on your choice,
we made a really light dry stout. It didn't really have any alcohol flavor or aroma to it at all. The only thing that could have gotten us in trouble is that it foams differently from Coke. But I mean, if somebody's paying that close of attention to you, you're done anyway. So
yeah, that's true. And that's kind of what I was saying, because I know the head profiles are going to be different than your average cola beverages and things like that. And I didn't know if they'd be more prone to bubble over from shaking and just that kind of. You have to treat it with kid gloves or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little fizzier, but we got away with it. It was awesome.
Everybody thinks Bano's a narc anyway, so they just thought he was under.
That's true. They just
hey, you guys like drinking beers? I like drinking beers. Who wants a beer here? Aha!
So my favorite time, one of the ones I was thinking about, Bano, and I think you were in this class with me, so I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah,
but
I think I know where you're going with this.
Transportation
class was this key word there. Awesome.
We had a transportation engineering course in college.
By Dr. Laguros, R.I.P.
R.I.P. sir.
Force him out for our homie.
Yeah, he actually was on the team that invented asphalt, and he was
literally older than asphalt.
Yes. He helped invent the roads that most people drive on. But in that class, we had a lab. So there was a 3-hour class and a 1-hour lab. Well, what do you do for transportation engineering? Most of the labs were very basic, very boring, which one of them included going out to an intersection and counting cars. How many cars are going through here? How many cars are going through here? So a couple of us came prepared. and it was a lab that was going to take, I think, like 3 hours. So we had 20 minutes to get to this intersection, and followed a couple buddies of mine, and we filled every pocket that we had with beers and all kinds of different stuff that whatever everybody's happened to be a personal palate. So some people brought alcohol, but I had beers in every pocket, probably 8 or 9 beers. And
Or you're rocking cans?
Yeah, mostly cans.
Okay.
I think I had a couple bottles too, but at first it was one of those like hide around. And...
Yeah, achoo.
Okay, good. And then you pour it into a little cup, and you maybe sneak the can and toss it underneath the tree or something. All right, I got away with it. And you're drinking your beer out of whatever little OU cup you have. Look, it's a plastic mug. It's just full of water.
Coffee mug, yeah.
And you go to town on that one. And then I'd say by beer 6, it was just like, we're shotgunning them, sticking keys in the side.
I love coffee. I'm so torn up on this coffee. Woo!
So yeah, that was a fun one. And I'm pretty sure by about beer 7 or 8, Laguros was looking at us like, dudes, like, why? Like, you're not even hiding it. Come on.
Yeah,
like,
I'm trying real hard to be cool about this, guys, but you're
Gross was a good dude.
Yeah, he was awesome. I actually wrote a paper about how concrete is better than asphalt, and he brought me into his office and explained to me how he invented asphalt, and I was like, I'm failing.
Oh, you didn't do that just to mess with him? You just wrote that as like, sit your ass down, son. Let me tell you something.
But
I invented
I'll tell you a little story about asphalt and a young boy with a dream about oil.
Instead, it turned out to be about a 2-hour conversation, very intellectual conversation, where he was literally excited to talk to somebody with a different viewpoint, because for the most part, college is that. The good students are always going to be the ones that, oh, yes, sir, Mr. Professor, I love, your ideas? Those are the best ones.
That was my secret.
Right.
And the crappy students like you and me are the ones fighting every step of the way.
Right.
Beer?
And then the teachers end up liking us more than everybody else, but it's fine.
Well,
it works out its own way.
There's something to be said for a head on your shoulders. If you're just wantonly disagreeing with the professor, that's not always a good strategy. But if you have a legitimate point behind your disagreement, then carry on.
Yep.
And if you've got, a good rapport with the teacher already, you're not just a jackass in his class. He's going to give you a little more benefit of the doubt so you can engage that later. But, yeah, that was pretty funny. We had a good core group of professors up there. So a lot of the fun times I had in college, I made it a point to drink with every beer, or a beer with every professor that we had. So
that's cool.
The last one that I had was, what was that gruff dude's name? He looked like the Faz. He always had a beard.
Dr. Knox?
No, not Knox.
Nanny?
Who was it?
Nanny, the guy that was built like a fire hydrant?
Yes, that guy.
Big scary dude.
Turns out he lived like 7 houses down from me. And one time we were leaving a beer or an event at college, and I think it was Green Beer Night or something. So we're leaving, and I'm like going home, and I'm following him in his Jeep, and I'm, where's he going? Okay, where's he going? And then we pull into his driveway. Because I'd say when he pulled into his driveway, I did too. Because I'm like 7 houses down now from my house.
Oh.
I was like, dude, I didn't realize you live here. He's like, where do you live? I'm like, I just live right down there. And we started talking, and that was the only man I had not had a drink with. And then we were talking. It was still wintertime and pretty cold up there. And I had a case of Iron City beer in the back of my truck. And he looks back there and he's like, I'm from Pittsburgh. Iron City. I love that beer. We proceeded to finish that entire 12-pack of Iron City in the guy's front yard. It's fun, man.
I call bullshit. You're just like the world's best suck-up. Like,
No,
it's so weird. I happen to live right down your street, sir. This is the beer from your hometown? I had no idea. That's cool.
I didn't internet stalk you at all.
Yeah, this is totally random chance that this is happening right now. Beer?
Back then, sir.
There's no way that your biography is on the OU website.
Why would you put your favorite beer from your childhood? I guess, yeah.
I got lucky that in Norman, Oklahoma, Iron City beer was considered exotic and good. So
Yeah, it was.
happened to pick that up at the liquor store.
Yeah, I think the guy who owns the liquor store also successfully graduated from this guy's class, and he had it figured out too.
All right.
You guys are pros for sure. Do you want to keep talking about this, or shall we move on to our sweetless in Seattle?
Well, we
Let's push
never
on.
discussed some of the other ideas and some of the other places. I think that's kind of the premise we were talking about.
Okay.
craziest.
Lay it on me, man.
What type of a venue is it okay to sneak a beer into? Like,
PTA meetings.
Had one of these.
Snuck a beer into a bar once.
You know, and that's all right. Sometimes prices are high, and you got to do what you got to do.
Well, and sometimes a bar only serves Coors, so you have to sneak in a can of Guinness.
There you go.
No, that's acceptable. That's
a mug.
That's legitimate gripe right there.
Way out the door. But what I was experiencing here recently was going to a funeral for my wife's grandmother, and their family. They have their own idiosyncrasies, but they don't really like to publicly grieve or make a huge deal out of somebody. You know, it's not the Irish Catholic wake where you're, you know, drinking and having just a riot of a time, and it's not like the Baptists where you're going in there and you're just, okay, it's got to be somber and you know, and there's no drinking allowed, and maybe afterwards they can do some celebration stuff. But this was more of a, you know, they're all Greek, so it's Greek Orthodox type stuff. They all drink, but you know, like everything was so emotionless because they were all trying to fight. They didn't really want to experience that hardcore emotion because this was the matriarch of the whole family, and you know, it was a big deal. And we were there, and I'm going, you know, I know if I had beer, like 2 or 3 of these guys would be drinking it with me, like in the wake, right? Or in the viewing. You know, I'm pretty sure we all would have had a beer if we had one.
Like some solo cup action.
So, you know, that's kind of what I'm going. Like, at what point is it not kosher? I mean, I understand that's probably pushing boundaries. I don't really have those boundaries like a lot of people, but
what?
Sneaking in like that? Could you walk in to a a funeral home with just a 6-pack, like straight up, not even have to put it in a cooler?
See that seems weird to me. Maybe a 12-pack, just kind of presuming there's going to be a crowd.
There's not a lot of people there. She was 94, so you know, 6-pack probably would have been enough. Several of those people, especially the high alcohol strength I drink, you know, would have probably put a lot of people on their bottoms.
I don't know how to help you, man, because I'm Irish, so every funeral I've ever been to has been soaked in alcohol.
Right. And I have been to those, and I have been to the staunch, you know, conservative, religious type funerals. I've been to a lot of funerals, you know, and I've been to here, there, everywhere in between. But typically, it is followed up, and this was the way this was. It was followed up by a nice meal, and people were drinking and sharing stories, and that's when it got real. But you know, you wonder about some of these events where it's like, golly, this is 3 hours of just pure somber. I understand why the Irish made the wake. You know, why they went big party. You don't go in there and celebrate the fact that somebody has died without celebrating the fact that somebody has died.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of a beating. Did you immediately go out drinking afterwards?
It was more or less, let's meet for dinner, we'll have a few drinks. None of them are lushes. They don't go out and just party, but they definitely drink at noon on weekends if, you know, nothing else is going on.
Well,
so.
I resent the implication, sir. But, no, point well taken. That definitely is a rich opportunity for bringing a little levity to the situation. And
right.
Beer, again, the great mediator, you know. We've seen presidents use it for patching up sore spots. Why not the funeral? What else do you guys think would be an opportunity that beer is just never there when you need it to be?
Speaking of, Bano, have you ever received a reply back to being the beer czar?
No, I never did, and I'm a little disappointed. I did send President Obama a request a few years ago to appoint me the United States beer czar. And really, in troubled times like these, don't we need a beer czar now more than ever? So, President Obama, if you're watching, you'd better be thinking about beer.
All right, I'm going to cut that into a political commercial for you. In times like these, don't we need beer more than ever?
We have to play like some sort of dramatic music. We should make some political beer ads. I like that. With the elections
coming up,
up,
absolutely.
Do that. Let's.
I like that. I like that. That'll be a show topic for later on in the year. Maybe during primaries would be a good time for that.
That's a good bit.
I'm thinking we make a series of ads and just like run a different one every month during 2016, since like the election has already started basically.
This is true.
Yeah, well let's.
It's Donald Trump. I mean, he wins it by a landslide. I mean,
let's run with this.
Wins it by a land shark.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw the creative process in action.
Yep, this is where the magic happens, folks.
This is magic happens right here on the Lone Star.
Writing it down. That means it's going to happen, folks.
Hey, I'm digitally writing it down right now. So,
all right.
What about the voting booth?
Oh man,
I'm sure they don't let you. I think there's probably a federal regulation against drinking at the polling station, but
I mean, you go to the polling station and your only choices for president are a giant douche or a turd sandwich. I mean, you gotta drink.
I think I'm going to do that at this year's election. I'm going to pop the top on something like one of those old school pop tops, where it makes a huge...
yeah. Vintage. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, have you guys seen that craft beer, the Church Key Ale or Church Key beer? It's like the old fashioned cans that you have to like pop the air hole and then pop a drinking hole, and it doesn't have like tab or whatever. Cool. Yeah, I think they were on again the Twitters. If you guys are on the internet, but I think it's called Church Key Beer.
Okay.
Yeah, they had some promoted tweets, and I was like, "Is that real? That sounds kind of awesome." So check it out.
I will.
Church
Sounds
Key
good.
Beer, and then.
So sneaking beer into a ballot booth. I'm also going to wear a GoPro so that you guys know I actually did it.
Okay, awesome. Voted or drank at a voting?
GoPro or steal. Okay. Do you guys know anybody around here who has a GoPro that maybe sleeps?
The network has one you can use, dude.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Not my network, but no. Lone Star has one we can let you use for that special on the scene reporting. There's got to be something illegal about that, though.
Totally is. I'll look up
between
the law.
Drinking in a polling place and why don't you just carry a firearm and don't bring any identification and swear your allegiance to communism. Just stack them up.
We usually vote at the church around the corner, so it's not like public domain building or anything. So I think I got some leeway there. Maybe only church laws I'm violating, but I'm not trespassing. They let me on their property. So
hey, Kyle, early voting, by the way, I think you're allowed to vote anywhere in Tarrant County. Teddy and I always used to vote at the downtown Fort Worth one on Halloween. The place was empty. Like, we would be the only people in there. A little word of advice.
Did you do it in costume?
That'll make it harder to sneak in a beer, though.
No, depends on my costume.
Oh, yeah. Good point. You could be dressed as the guy with the beer dispensing plastic helmet.
Go as your Duffman costume. That was legit, man.
Hide it in plain sight.
My Duffman costume, I could actually have one of those Duff beers be loaded and ready to go.
Yeah, no, it's all part of the costume.
There you go. All right, we're sneaking beers everywhere. For those of you watching at home, your homework for the next month is to sneak beer somewhere.
Yes.
Get beer into some place where it really shouldn't be.
Send
your
us
church
footage.
Or synagogue. Maybe a political event, like maybe go to a Donald Trump campaign fundraiser and sneak a beer in a beer and tell us about it.
Instead of open carry, it'll be carry open.
That's right, carry open.
So send us video of that if you can. We'll have all of our contacts at the end of the show, and we'll run that on an upcoming episode if anybody gets any good footage. Absolutely.
I think we should do this. We should give our audience homework every month.
Yep. Because we always did our homework so well, so why wouldn't
we
people
do our
on the
homework.
internet?
So it's time that you guys step up and pull your weight.
Come on, internet.
Come on, what's your deal?
Why don't you contribute for once?
Why don't you put down the Twitters and the LOLs and do something?
Watch our show.
All right, I feel like this has run its course.
Yeah, that's the petering out of sneaking beers. So more on that topic as it develops. But yes, the one we're going to come back to and revisit many a time, I imagine, is a little something we're calling Sweetless in Seattle. Kyle, why don't you tee this up for Bano and you guys tell me about what you want this. Tell me about your vision.
So Sweetless in Seattle. This was a concept that we were discussing, and basically it stemmed from a beer that Bano brewed. and brewed very well. He brewed a Scotch ale. And a Scotch ale is one of the sweetest varieties of beer that you can possibly make. And he brewed it up in Seattle, where they are known for hoppy beers. And he enters it into a contest, judges kind of mediocre, sends it down here. I liked it a lot. He sent me one just to try. I thought it was a fantastic Scotch ale. Little warm, little young, but it was only about 3 months old, and you're talking a high alcohol beer, so that's really young. And I told him, I was like, this is fantastic. Then I explained to one of our home brewers in our club, who's a renowned brewer, probably our best brewer in the club, and likely will be Master Brewer of the Year this year, if I can't beat him. But the guy says to me, he says, well, Kyle, what do they know about sweet beers in Seattle? And I went, that's very true. They literally don't know jack crap about sweet beers in Seattle. Every little area has their own special types of beers and their own things that happen. So North California, Oregon, Washington, hops grow very well up in those regions. So hops end up in beer because they're cheap. They're easy to get. They get first dibs, really. So what we decided to do was make a focus segment on trying to find fantastic examples of sweet beers in Seattle.
We're here today at the Salish Sea Brewing Company in Edmonds, Washington, about 10 miles north of downtown Seattle, where we're going to help you locate some of the best malty beers in the Seattle area. Salish Sea is relatively new on the brewing scene. They started about 2 years ago. During that 2 years, though, they've made a lot of headway as they have really good beers, a fantastic location in beautiful downtown Edmonds, and just a really nice spot to sit and enjoy a beer. A few months back, they decided to expand into their neighboring space. Part of this expansion included unveiling a new beer called Expansion Amber. Expansion Amber is a low bitterness malty beer. You pour it, it pours a nice brownish red color, a little bit of bronze highlight. It's a really nice looking beer. When you drink it, you'll notice a lot of caramelized malt, a lot of toasted malt. It has a big full finish that with just a light touch of some sort of citrusy hop flavor. Expansion Amber is definitely one of the better malty beers that I've had up here. And it helps us prove, yet again, that beer doesn't always have to be sweetless in Seattle.
Very nicely reported, Bano.
I love the intro, Rich. That was very nicely done.
Yeah, I just found that on the internet, so thought that was nice.
Yeah, and it's like I said during the intro at the beginning of the show, malty beer can be found up here. You just have to know where to look. And I'm going to do my best as the show progresses to get people an idea of where to find these great malty beers, because the ones that I've had are tremendous. There's some absolutely amazing malty beers up in this area, and you just got to find them.
You know, and I think that's important, especially up in Seattle, where there's a large contingent of hipsters, because hipsters are into craft brewing and craft beers right now. Because that's not the trend in the general realm of things. But now that craft beer is getting more trendy and the trend is IPAs, you need to help the hipsters find the next trend, which will be beers that aren't beers that all their hipster buddies are already drinking, which will be sweet beers up there.
And if that fails, you can always just go down south of San Francisco and try to do the same thing there.
I have some family. I have some family in the Bay Area, and I will film some segments down there because I'm down there once or twice a year.
Man about the state. Excellent.
There are some just amazing breweries in the Bay Area. Just I can't get enough of the beer down there.
Well, it's nice that your new home away from home Salish there has a good offering in that category.
Oh yeah,
gives you a little bit of refuge in the hop.
There's a number of great malty offerings around around Edmonds specifically. We've got 2 breweries here in Edmonds and one pseudo brewery and a couple of fantastic beer bars that are just gonna. I could film this segment for as long as we could run the show for 10 years and I could film this segment just in Edmonds. because there are that many good malty beers to be found here.
Well, that's the challenge. That's what we expect out of you now, man. So.
Well, I'm going to make it down to Seattle because I'm going to go to Fremont, the breweries of tonight's selection. I'm going to go to Elysian, recently purchased by Budweiser.
Yay!
Kyle.
Yay!
But still making really good beer. And there's a bunch of great breweries down in Seattle that I'm going to visit for some malts as well.
See, that's a part of my theory there. They're buying these breweries. Goose Island. They bought Goose Island. Sierra Nevada. They bought Sierra Nevada. But they're still making the exact same recipes, the exact same people. Like, they're not changing anything yet.
Well, and it's an interesting theory because actually the day of the Super Bowl when they aired that ad about how nobody drinks a peach oatmeal pale or whatever that was, they had just within the last couple of weeks bought Elysian, who makes that exact beer they were ripping on. So I feel like you're definitely onto something there.
And they're the one that they were ripping on before, First Amendment Brewery in San Francisco.
The watermelon
they
wheat.
Also make a watermelon wheat.
Yeah.
It's Hell or High watermelon.
Yeah, so I think that you might be onto something. I really do.
I did say a lot of people who were responding to that Twitter, that little Freudian slip there. Who were responding to that Twitter statement. It was almost like a free commercial for First Amendment.
Oh yeah,
because there are a lot of people who were very familiar with exactly what they were kind of sliding at there, and a lot of diehard fans, more so than people who chimed in and said, "I love Bud, give me my money." So. Well, after I mean, I don't want to cut you guys off early. We're still kind of figuring out our style here. But,
yeah, tonight went a little bit long, guys. So
yeah,
sorry
we're chock
about
full
that.
of goodness. We're chock full of nuts. This is a point where we would generally offer another ad spot to sponsors and that sort of thing. But I thought for our inaugural episode back, it might be good. Kyle, can you tell us a little about the Homebrew for Heroes organization that you're a part of?
Sure. Yeah, Homebrew for Heroes is an organization that started a little over 2 years ago. At Super Bowl Sunday. Well, that was the first giveaway event. But Homebrew for Heroes was born of Craig Gilbreth's brother being on his third tour in Afghanistan, flying helicopters. He was coming back. We knew he was coming back. We didn't know when. We knew a general month-ish, but that's the National Guard for them. That's what they do. You don't know exactly when they're coming back. But what we did was we brewed beer and actually brewed over 1,000 bottles across a bunch of different home brewers. And we packaged it up, made custom labels, made like notes on the labels about what the brew was. So people who brewed the beer could write a special note for that person. And then we went on to hand those out when they were done being deployed. So basically they're getting back to their base in Grand Prairie. They're getting released. They're back to civilian life or whatever, either permanency or temporary time that would be for them. And we're just handing them boxes of beer. And everybody's looking at us like we just handed them a free shirt, but we wanted to fill out a credit card app. But that wasn't the case. We're literally shaking a hand and saying, "Thank you, sir, for your service. Appreciate what you've done for us." And we give them beer. And they get to take it home. It was Super Bowl Sunday during an ice storm. And those guys, they loved and appreciated every second of it after coming back from the sandbox. So, it was a really cool deal for us.
That is so cool, man. That's a good opportunity to get in front of some war heroes there. And like you said, you're giving them something that's really unconventional. It's not like a pen and thank you for your service. What is this? You're giving me a case of delicious beer. All right. Thank you, citizen. That'll work,
It's a beer. What do you want me to do with this? I want you to drink it fast. Go home, drink it. Take it down. We don't want to
drink away that PTSD, bro.
Drink it, enjoy it. You're the pro, so very cool.
We've expanded. We've actually changed our guidelines to meet TABC guidelines in Texas, which is annoying because we as an organization can't brew homebrew anymore. But I, as a committee member, can brew homebrew and donate it. But if Craig and I and one of the other 5 committee members brew together, we can't donate that beer. So we're very careful about our rules and how we do everything. And everybody brews on their own, and we still donate. And it's great. We've had a few giveaway events, not as many as we want, but we've been rolling live on that website for about 8 months now. So if you want to nominate anybody, we've expanded it to fire, police, any other service organizations, EMS, people that help our community have very difficult put their lives in the line of fire type jobs all the time. That's kind of who we're trying to appreciate and give back to. So if you've got somebody or a group of somebodies and you want to nominate them, you go log into our website, create an account, and you nominate that group, and we will help spearhead and talk to the people that are in the power that allow us to do that. Some places are good with it, some places aren't. So we've been shut down by a firehouse. Now we've been okayed by a firehouse. So, it just depends on the area of the city. And
yeah, I imagine a lot of that will be municipally restricted, and some of it's going to, some communities going to be like, hell yeah, get on in here, boys. So it's definitely a cool offering, and it's a nice initiative to kind of see that growing some momentum. I'm looking on Facebook. It's HB4, the number 4 Heroes. So facebook.com, HB4 Heroes. Looks like it's got kind of all the latest news as it comes out and events and things like that, and also links you to the .org site and all the people that are there.
Let's go ahead and share that on the Dogleg Brewery Facebook page.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's point some folks in that direction.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Been involved in that now for about 2.5 years, and it's really cool. I wish we could do more. We've got a really cool event coming up, actually up by your neck of the woods, Rich.
Yeah.
At Shannon Brewery,
Yep.
We're going to have what we're calling Op Bravo. We fought so long to get Op Alpha, which was the first giveaway, and then we wanted to create something where everybody else created the events. They created the mission. We wanted Bravo to be created by somebody else, but it took a long time to get the infrastructure going, and it just didn't get that spark and that fire started. So we made our own Op Bravo. Since then, we've had Charlie Delta. I mean, we've got several since then. But Op Bravo is going to be a giveaway event in November. So it's going to be all open to everybody else, and it's a homebrew competition. People are bringing in 5-gallon kegs. We've already sold like 30 or 40 entries, and it's free judging for vets or anybody with a service ID, EMS, fire, police. Anybody comes in with a service ID, they judge for free. So,
excellent.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool deal. They still have to pay to get into the brewery to do their tour, but they get all the brewery tour beers, and then they get everything else. Plus, they get a special beer that is brewed just for this situation from the brewery. It's a really cool event, and that's coming up in November. But that's opbravo.org, or you can look it up at hb4h.org.
Very cool. Well, yeah, definitely. I've been hearing you talk about this organization for a while, and good opportunity to kind of give a shout out, because it's something our booming craft beer community here in North Texas, especially, can get on board each in their own way, whatever they're comfortable with. So,
sure,
very very cool. So let's round out the show. Our main topic, as we talked about at the top. How are you guys enjoying your beer cocktails?
I put mine down, and then I actually picked up a real beer. So I'm immensely.
Not a fan. All right.
I'm really liking this. I might dial back the limoncello a little bit next time. Just because it's a little harsh. I've gotten so used to beer over back in the day I probably would have loved this, but I've gotten so used to beer over the years that even that little bit of liquor is a bit rough. But
yeah, it's true. You're not really acclimated for liquor after being such a hardcore beer guy. That's funny.
Yeah, exactly. The flavors though are tremendous. The lemon has really dragged out some of the more citrusy elements of the beer. I'm going to try this in some other beers, I think, because I really like what it's done.
So when I was doing some research about this topic, everything I could find about beer cocktails pretty much was about the shandy. And
shandy's popular, man.
Within that group, too, it seems like ginger beer. It was all about the ginger beer. Tell me what you guys know about ginger beers.
Well, ginger beer, there's a recipe in our beer club brewed by friends of ours, Steve and Vicky Brown. They've created it and or at least massaged it over the years to be theirs. And it's
they've perfected it.
Yeah, it's amazing. But it ferments in 24 hours, and it is old in 48. It's a really weird beer because it's brewed with bread yeast, so it's so strong, and it's eating up the sugars, and it doesn't have a whole lot of – it's only sugar, ginger, and orange peel. So you got water, sugar, ginger, and orange peel, and you're creating this cocktail out of bread yeast, so it goes nuts on that bread yeast. But it's amazing. I mean, it really is a great. beer substitute. If you want to cut it off after like 6 hours, it doesn't have any alcohol. It's kind of like kombucha. You can dial it back. But if you let that bread yeast go, you can create a 5, 6, 7% alcohol monster.
And Steve and Vicky just do an absolutely spectacular job of making that. I mean, I've had it several times, Kyle, and I know you've had it several times. You've made it before, I believe. And I'm not. Rich, are you talking about using ginger beer as an ingredient or ginger beer as a cocktail? Because I don't really see that being a cocktail.
No. Mainly, every cocktail recipe I could find that was a quote unquote beer. Well, yeah, it would be a ginger beer base. So
I can see that, and think about how many like party punch, like alcohol free party punch cocktails involve like can of dry ginger ale. It's the exact same concept.
Okay. Just with the little ABV. All right.
Yeah, I like it, man. I like it. It's a great idea.
Okay, so kind of mixed results on beer cocktails, but definitely not something to ignore, and it seems to be more trendy. I saw we went to an AMC theater for with the kids, and they had a big thing in their lobby. It was one of these bar movie theaters, and they had a big 6-foot display about the beer cocktails they were offering at the bar. And they had 3 different selections, just kind of turnkey cocktails that were ready to go for you. Yeah, nice. So it's definitely a trendy thing right now. So
BJ's Brew House. I ate lunch there the other day, and actually it was dinner after work, and I'm looking for beers. I'm trying to see what they have, and here's some of their beers, and I see them. There's like 5 beers listed, but they're all mixed with something else. And so they had a mixed beer of their own type of beer cocktail list in the middle of their menu. So yeah, they're involved in it too.
Yeah, it's like the Hatch chili of alcohol. So,
right.
It's everywhere. All right, guys. Well, it's been we've kept you on the line here for more than an hour, and I really appreciate you guys coming on and doing the show some more with us. It's something I'm going to be looking forward to. We're doing it every third. This will be third Tuesday of the month, 8:30 here on Frontier Television. If you want to watch it live,
we'll get there, Rich. That's part of the closing. Don't get ahead of us.
Okay, I don't want to take your lines away, but I did want to tease kind of ahead. So we'll probably do an episode on electioneering the beer way.
Yeah, I think electioneering, and then there's another thing I said I wanted to talk about in our next episode. Well, it was towards the beginning of this one. I don't know. I've had beer since then, so I don't remember. Kyle, anything you want to cover in our next episode? Actually, next episode is going to be September, so I'm going to be wearing lederhosen for that one and talking about Oktoberfest.
Oh, there you go. I forgot.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm going to be eating. I'll be stuffing my face while you guys, and pardon the brewery mess, starting a project over here, which we can debut on one of the episodes coming up. But this right here is a fermentation vessel. So our deep freezer went out, had some problems that are going to be hundreds of dollars to fix. So instead of spending hundreds of dollars, we're building something with hundreds of dollars. So it's got an AC unit already built in. Chris Terrain and I spent a bunch of time. We've got foam insulation already built in. We've got to design the front of it and make it look presentable. A few other little things, but we've got about 8 hours into it. Probably about another 8 hours before it's buttoned up and ready to go. But with this room AC unit on it, it's going to keep it as cold as we want it.
You're very much the DIY brewer, man. That's cool.
Homebrew DIY, man. That's a segment. Make sure to take lots of photos.
Yeah, we were terrible about photos, so it's like at the beginning we were like, all right, we'll do this, and we got the nail gun. I wish we took videos of us using the nail gun. That would have been great. But,
GoPro, man. Let me know.
And just take it out and shoot some cans with it, Happy Gilmore style, and shoot video of that.
We tried, and we didn't end up like my brother-in-law when he made his chicken coop. He had one last nail, and he reached his arm around and
oh my gosh,
to his arm. Had a nail stick in his arm.
So next month on You Can't Brew That on Television, we'll be talking Oktoberfest,
and we'll be talking some do-it-yourself projects.
And until then, you can find our past episodes on youtube.com/TV Lone Star in the You Can't Brew That playlist. Send us your emails for the show to ycbtot@frontiertelevision.com. Of course, plan to join us each Thursday night at 8:30 Central, right here each third Thursday night, right here on the Lone Star. I cut
Tuesday.
you off, and then I went and screwed up the line, Rich. I should have.
It's okay. I can just edit that right in. They'll never know.
Just edit that right in. Nobody will know the difference. So while Rich is editing, please plan to join us the third Tuesday. Wow.
Fourth Thursday.
Kyle, do you want to take this, buddy?
Yes, on the fourth Thursday of every month.
The fourth Thursday
of every Smarch
Tuesday of each month at 8:30 Central, right here on the Lone Star. As we do this thing live, you can watch and chat at frontiertelevision.com. So while you're pondering that and my inability to speak after a summer shandy, please remember that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Well, I set up, down, flip it around, dress it up, mess it and take it to town, and I can't even try to stay above the ground, and I won't even try cause it's a safe sound, cause I know I should just sail away. Whoa, I said nothing is wrong, everything's right, fucking up shit on a Saturday night, and those tires I better